You're very welcome back. Now, did you know this? Do you know that 4 in 10 people would not want to know if a loved one was suffering from depression, despite 1 in 5 people actually suffering from this condition in their lifetime? Shocking.
That's awful. That is actually a very depressing statistic. You would think that people would care more about people close to them. But anyway, we're joined by actress Mary McEvoy, who has been suffering with depression for the last 15 years and been very outspoken on the subject, and very open and very honest about it. And also Rory O'Donnell, who's president of the Irish Pharmacy Union, to tell us about the Lean on Me pharmacy campaign. It said Lean on Me there.
Yes, no, it's Lean on Me.
Anyway, it hopes to encourage people to seek medical help. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning, Mary. Welcome.
Thank you.
You have been, actually, and I've heard you now on a couple of occasions, and it's very brave, very courageous of you, but I think it's probably something you feel you need to do. But also it's refreshing to hear you talk about it the way that you do, because it normalises it.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, do you know what? That's the way it should be.
Well, of course it should be like that. I mean, I got a terrible shock when I saw that statistic, that 4 in 10, and I got terribly angry about it. That people still feel that sense of stigma in this day and age, when there's every day there's headlines in the paper that tell us we have to start paying more attention to our own mental health and to other people who have got mental health problems. There's really no stigma. It has never dawned on me ever to be ashamed of how I feel.
Mary, we just got a text in there just before this from a woman. Yeah. She's 47, 4 kids. She got depression. Her best friend, for whatever reason, walked away. And in the meantime, her mother's gotten liver cancer and is obviously very ill. She now needs that friend better than ever. And as she says at the end of it, she said, if I had my arm or my leg in plaster of Paris, people would be more concerned about me.
Yeah.
And why is it that people would not want to know about something like that? But they'd be nosy about just about any other medical ailment that you would have.
Well, I actually posited this little philosophical point in my book when I was... that people who are confronted with mental illness in another person don't really, they are scared because it's subconsciously triggering something in themselves.
Because it strikes such a chord with them?
I think it is. I think it's that. I think they know themselves that they are just a hair's breadth away from that dark place themselves.
And I can't take on your problems as well.
And also there is a shame as well. But I still don't think people realise. I've spoken to people who've fallen out with people and have subsequently found out that they were suffering from depression at the time. But the 2 points don't actually join up. They still won't go and say, hey, I didn't realise you were going through a bad time, let's just put it all behind us. They say, oh, well, now he said and she said. And they still don't actually realise that it's an illness or a condition that makes people do that. And the ignorance still is quite extraordinary. And as I say, that statistic has just floored me.
It does imply an enormous amount of fear about it, though, doesn't it? It isn't just that we're uncomfortable or we don't understand it. We're terrified of it. We're terrified that it's in us or that it may visit us. It's holding a mirror up to us, and
that's exactly
we're having to look at our deepest, darkest thoughts and think, well, hang on a second, maybe I actually have this.
That's exactly
and maybe I go, oh, well, get on with it, and I motor through.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's something like this Lean on Me campaign is so important, because there's a pharmacy in practically every town and village in Ireland, and there is a port of call for someone who may feel they cannot be open with their family.
Well, actually, Rory, I want to bring you in here because, in fairness, anybody who actually goes and has the condition diagnosed and medicated will have to go to somebody like you. Well, which means that your local pharmacist will probably know as much about your condition as your local GP.
Well, absolutely. The local pharmacist is very accessible, and the local pharmacist knows their patients very well, and the patients know ourselves. And of course, we're a very important part of the support network in terms of healthcare.
And you'll know from the strength and the type of medication, also the strength of the dosage, the severity of the condition, won't you?
Well, absolutely. Like, we don't necessarily get the indications explained on prescriptions, but certainly we can make our own judgments in terms of the medication. Very often patients will arrive with preconceived ideas about their medicines. Perhaps they've picked up ideas from well-meaning family and friends which may not be correct, or indeed from the internet, and they may not take their medicines correctly. And of course it takes a little bit of time for medicines to work, particularly medicines in this area. There's four different phases within the first phase, which can last a few weeks. Any side effects, which can be rare but can happen, that's when you very often will see them. And some patients may discontinue their medicines during that phase, and of course they will go back to square one. Whereas if they actually persist with the medicines after some time, and it can be weeks or it can be months, they will return to a normal and active life. And we would encourage that, and we would very much encourage patients to speak to us, to literally lean on us, lean on your pharmacist, and we are here to support you in every possible way.
Mary, that's one of the things you talk about, though, is that it's not as if you wake up one day and you're cured and voila, depression is gone. You're living with it and you're taking medication.
I am, yes. I've been taking medication on and off since I've been diagnosed, and I have at times had to go to my pharmacist and say, it's not too good today, and they have been so. And the other thing that I don't think people actually realise as well is that pharmacists have consulting rooms. You can actually go to a private part of the shop, of the pharmacy, and actually talk to your pharmacist privately. So say if you are somebody who is teetering, you can actually go and get help almost immediately. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to wait in a surgery. They're there, but also that, just to go back to that, yes, an awful lot of people want that Hollywood ending to depression. For me, it hasn't happened. I still live in hope, but it hasn't happened for me. Some people it certainly does. Some people get better with talking therapies. Some people need medication and talking therapies. You just have to really work out and get as much information as you can from your professionals.
Mary, can I go back? I wanted to go back to when you were originally diagnosed, Mary. How long did it take you to realise that you needed help, that this was more than feeling down, than not being able, you weren't able to cope?
Well, I could cope. You see, that was the problem. With me, in a way, I have moderate depression, which is like a kind of a running sore. So I can cope. And I think in funny ways, sometimes which is a terrible thing, so you wish you would collapse, because then people would actually realise there's something wrong with you.
I think there's a lot of people out there who's exactly the same as you, who can manage to put a mask on and pretend everything's great and carry on going, despite feeling inside very trapped and very depressed.
You see, and that's the other thing. I worked every day I've never missed a day of my life in 20 years with depression. Never. And I think other people think, now, of course, obviously if people have severe depression, they're going to have to take a break. They can come back to work and be perfectly well and all of those things and lead a perfectly normal life. But a lot of people think once a person ever even mentions depression, that somehow they're incapable of working. And it's crazy. And you can have good moments. I don't think depression and unhappiness are not the same thing.
And there's a kind of a misnomer about depression, in that it's this catch-all, and that you're depressed, and therefore that there must have been some traumatic event or dysfunctional family background or bitterly unhappy childhood or something like that. There's a whole raft of reasons why you can suffer from depression, from a chemical imbalance to traumatic events and psychological events.
Well, absolutely. Very much of depression is not completely understood as to the genesis of it or why it has happened. Sometimes it is a tangible reason. It can be a bereavement. It could be marital breakup. Could be debt crisis. It could be many things that you can actually point to. But very often we can't actually point to it. You could live in the most beautiful part of Ireland, such as West Donegal, or you could live in city centre Dublin and be equally affected by depression.
You could also have a chemical deficiency or an imbalance.
Exactly.
But very often it is a chemical imbalance of, there's two particular chemicals, which is noradrenaline and serotonin. As I say, we don't completely understand always why this happens, but that is the goal of the medicated treatment, for example, is to restore that.
Okay. Sorry, I was going to say, with the IPU involved in this, every pharmacy in the country will have signs up about this, and unfortunately most of us have to visit it at least once every couple of weeks, so people will know, and it is available. Yes. And as you said very appropriately, Mary, there is a very quiet, private place you can go where your business doesn't have to be discussed with anybody else other than a health professional.
Yeah, and also you can go to www.leanonme.net as well for more information.
Okay.
Mary, thank you very much, as always, for talking about this. I know we'll get a huge response from Rory. Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And TV3, by the way, have been discussing the depression issue from a national perspective with a new series hosted by Ray Darcy. Ray Darcy, How to Beat Depression. In the next episode in his new series, it airs on a Tuesday night at 10 p.m.
And we'll be getting a live update from Gdansk with Tommy Martin in just a few minutes.